Do you need a lot of money to move abroad? Today I'm bringing you the story of women who have moved abroad and stayed abroad without mountains of money backing them up, and I cannot wait for you to hear how they did it all. Can you tell me your name and where you're from?
Adalia, Houston, Texas.
Where do you live now?
I live in Mexico City, Mexico.
How long have you been there?
A total of 5 years over the last 7 years.
Okay, so in and out over the past 7 years. All right. What kind of work did you do in Houston?
I was in K-12 education.
And what was your annual income?
When I left after 19 years, about 55,000 without any extra work, about 60,000 with extra work.
How much money did you have saved when you moved to Mexico?
Cash,
Sure.
uh, about $25,000.
Okay. Um, when you knew you were going to move, did you make any financial sacrifices to help you afford your move abroad?
I did not make any additional financial sacrifices. No new
Okay, can we
ones.
can we talk about the existing ones?
Oh, the existing ones, I mostly cooked at home because my savings rate at the time, I was trying to get it up to 50%. And
Okay,
so
so
that meant not eating out, limiting my paid entertainment outside of the home, that kind of stuff.
so you were trying to save 50% of all the money you made.
Yes.
Okay. And your family at that time was what was your family unit, if you don't mind sharing?
At the time that I left the United States, I was divorced and had partial custody, split custody of one minor child.
Did the minor child move with you to Mexico?
She did not move with me to Mexico, but the year before, she moved with me to Honduras.
What kind of visa are you on in Mexico that allows you to live there?
I have permanent residency in Mexico.
And do you remember when you applied for your residency, how much money was required for you to either have saved or as income for you to get it?
I believe when I applied for permanent residency in 2019, you needed $79,000 saved
Okay. You just said you had $25,000 saved.
cash.
Cash. Okay. So the rest of it were in other instruments,
Mhm.
stocks, etc.
Yeah.
For the money you had invested and saved when you moved abroad, how did you end up saving that money?
That money came primarily from once upon a time, I had a 403B that did not include a company match, didn't have a whole lot of money in it. I rolled that over. And I had a Roth IRA. And so I tried to contribute the max to it. And then when I decided that I was leaving K-12 education and education in the state of Texas, I rolled over my contributions to the Texas teacher retirement into um, a rollover IRA. So that's where that money came from. The money that was not cash, I invested in low cost index funds and I left it alone.
Okay. So, do you remember what the max you invested in any year was?
$6,000.
And do you remember over how many years you had been investing?
Um, I believe I like started for real in about like 2008, 9, somewhere in there.
And that includes all of the different retirement accounts we just talked about?
Um, the 403B predated that, but I had stopped contributing to it. I didn't contribute the whole time.
Okay. So you contributed six or less over the course of 2008, 2009 to 2019, and that money grew exponentially. That was a good time in the stock market. So that
Yeah.
money grew exponentially, and you
Yes.
had more than enough money necessary to meet the requirements for permanent residency in Mexico.
Yes.
So even though you didn't make a lot of money, you ended up with what is quite a healthy amount of money, quite a healthy amount, by putting aside a small piece over 10 years.
Yes. And if I had started earlier, have even more and have put in even less. But what's done is done.
It's done is done. It's done is done. What kind of work do you do now?
Now I am a financial educator, a money coach, and a retreat host.
Okay. And how much money do you make per month now?
Who knows? It varies a lot from one month to the next. But we could say some months it's zero, and
Mhm.
some months it's $8,000.
How has the move affected your long-term financial goals?
The move abroad opened my eyes to the fact that I did not need a whole lot more money than I already had. So I shifted from I gotta save, I gotta save, I gotta save to okay, that money is over there doing what it needs to do. I can kind of chill out a little bit, work a little bit to cover my daily expenses, and then relax. That's how it changed.
When you moved to Mexico, did you have a job lined up?
No,
Okay. But was there a but there?
but I did end up getting one. It sort of fell into my lap. So I have worked in Mexico for pesos before.
Were you paid per hour in the work you were
I was
doing?
paid per
D-
hour.
Can you tell us approximately in dollars, approximately what you were paid per hour?
I made about $12 USD an hour,
And about how many hours a week did you work?
less than 10.
Was that because there were more hours available, but you didn't want them, or were those the only hours available for you?
There were probably more hours available.
How long after you moved abroad did you start the business that you run now?
By year, I think it was, oh hell, I got to do some math here. I think 3 years. I was abroad for 3 years before I opened the business or started the
Okay.
business.
Do you have health insurance? And if not, how do you manage your healthcare costs?
In this moment, I do not. I
Mhm.
have had health insurance abroad in Mexico previously. Right now, I am paying out of pocket.
Can you tell me kind of generally what your expenses are for a year?
Medical or total?
Medical expenses.
For the most part, up until now, it's been zero. Um, but I'm getting ready to make a doctor's appointment. I would expect this appointment would basically cover well woman plus a uh, was it transvaginal ultrasound, that kind of stuff would be approximately $75-$80 USD. Don't know what the dentist is going to run me just yet, but the plan is to get medical insurance again. It's just I don't have it because I let it expire without renewing.
What's your current financial situation compared to when you left?
My my net worth is a lot higher than it used to be.
Okay.
Um, and I, I don't, I'm not worried about money in the same way that I was previously.
Can you expand on that?
Well, I don't know if I've got a good reason. I think it is just maybe my perspective and outlook have changed because again, I'm no longer in the mode of I gotta save, I need to have all of this money. I'm at a point like I feel like I have enough money to do the things that I want to do. And so there's no stress in that.
If you could start over, what would you do different financially?
Start over from the beginning.
Anywhere you want.
I would have started investing much, much earlier. And the thing that comes to mind, like I have owned multiple houses in my lifetime. Instead of single family homes, I would have bought like a triplex or something and house hacked. That is the big thing I would definitely do different.
What financial advice would you give to someone considering moving abroad?
My advice for someone considering a move abroad is to eliminate high cost consumer debt. Don't take that with you, because it gives you a whole lot more flexibility when it comes to the amount of income that you need to have.
What are your monthly expenses?
My total monthly expenses, I suspect, is just shy of $1,500 USD.
Okay.
Um, would you like me to break it down or just you want it total?
Sure. Break it down for us.
Okay, my rent is about $600. My cell phone is about $10. Um, oh, food is the wild card. I have no idea what I spend on food. Probably two, $300. I spend about 50 bucks to get my hair done a month. I'm really trying to think, what else do I spend money on? Oh, utilities, probably about another 40, 40 bucks a month.
Okay. Now, $1,500 as your total expenses. Tell me about your BS expenses that you didn't include in that number.
I was gonna say,
You know I'm asking.
that's what I need to spend to stay alive. That is not what I'm
Those were two
spending.
different questions. You know me. Let's go.
Oh gosh, it depends because I can drop $200 on fabric in a blink.
Okay.
Um, Travel can be very quite ridiculous. Um, what other nonsense am I spending money on? Primarily, it's fabric and travel.
Okay. So you're still engaged. I want to say still engaged in hobbies, but are you actually doing it more than you were before?
Um, I would say a little bit more because the way my day is structured, I no longer spend 8, 9 hours a day at somebody's job where I have to leave my home. How I structure my day is up to me. So if I decide I want to sew this afternoon, because I already work from home, it's very easy to walk into the room where the sewing machine is and go ahead and do that.
How would you compare your quality of life now to your quality of life before?
My quality of life now far exceeds what I had before. It's not even in the same ballpark. I was overworked. I was severely stressed. Um, I joke all the time that moving abroad, I probably have extended my life expectancy because a lot of the things that I was stressed out about in my previous life, I don't have in this. I'm not stressed in that way. Um, Even because I've lived abroad where my time was my own and when my time was not, even when I was working a more traditional job, but abroad, my work life balance was far better and my quality of life was still better than what I had in the US.
Okay.
You know, my relationships with friends in my circle far exceed what I had time to nurture and cultivate in the US.
Thank you, Adalia, for being here with me today. I really appreciate your input on this.
You're welcome.
Hi, can you tell me your name and where you're from?
My name is Andrea, and I grew up in Florida.
Okay. And where do you live now?
I currently live in Playa del Carmen, Mexico.
All right. How long have you been there?
I've been living there since about September 2022.
When you moved to Playa, how much money did you have saved?
I probably have saved about maybe $4 or $5,000.
Did you have to make any financial sacrifices to afford that move?
Yes, so I definitely had a roommate at the time,
Mhm.
and so I wasn't paying as much every month, and I was able to save probably 12 to $1,500 a month.
By not having a roommate. And yeah,
By
okay.
having a roommate. Yes.
And so if my math is right, you weren't saving for a very long time before you moved for this move.
Maybe I would say 6 months, more or
Okay.
less.
Okay. Thank you. Um, what kind of visa do you have that allows you to live in Mexico?
I have a temporary residency.
Okay. And do you remember how much money you needed to have saved or income you had to show in order to get that visa?
Yes, so I had to show that I was making at that time, I believe it was a little over $2,600 a month.
So what kind of work do you do now? So tell us more about it.
So currently I'm a freelance book editor. I've been doing that roughly for about 4 years now. Well, when I first moved, what was I making? Yeah, I guess I was making just under 3,000, but since I've been in Playa, I've been making a little bit more, so closer to 3,500, I would say.
What is your monthly budget in Playa del Carmen?
So including rents, transportation, food, and a little bit of entertainment, it's roughly about 1,500, 12
Okay.
to 1,500, depends on how much I go out that month.
How has moving to Mexico affected your long-term financial goals?
Um, I would say it affected it in a positive way, more so because I feel like I'm much more at peace. So like working every day is much easier. So I don't feel like I'm pressured as under the gun as I was in the US. And I go out more in Playa, but I can always pull back on that if I wanted to.
Did you have any debts when you left the US?
Yes, I still have debts, quite a bit of debt.
Okay. All right. Are you able to pay them off while living in Mexico?
Yes, I am.
What was your biggest financial challenge in your first year?
Since I had my savings, I didn't have much of a challenge
Mhm.
financially because I kind of already knew what to expect based on my research.
Mhm.
So I had enough saved up at least for like a deposit and getting apartments, and I haven't had any major expenses or things haven't really gone wrong yet. So I haven't really had to deal with any financial expenses. But
Okay.
I also had a car in the States, so that was kind of an expense as well that I don't have anymore in Playa.
Okay. So you've been there about 2 years, and
Correct.
you've had no financial hiccups, and you came with 4 or $5,000, and that was enough of a nest egg to get you situated, get you a deposit, get you started on a new life down there while you had the monthly income coming in.
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Do you have health insurance, and how do you manage healthcare costs?
I actually don't have health insurance.
Mhm.
It's something I need to look into, but I do not have health insurance. What is it? You know, taking a risk, risking it all,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. Since you don't have health insurance, how do you handle healthcare expenses?
Thankfully, I haven't had any healthcare issues.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure. Well, in Mexico, going to the hospital, from my understanding, is fairly cost effective. It's not really expensive. And a lot of times you can just go to the pharmacy and they have a physician there who you can see, on the spot. And it's usually not very expensive. So I imagine if I ever did need to go, I can just go to the pharmacy and you can pretty much get almost any pill you want at the pharmacy without a prescription. Um, so apart from taking, paracetamol, that's about all I do.
Okay. But I will add to that because I also live in Mexico and I have had
Okay.
healthcare things.
Okay.
I at the pharmacy, I think the cost for me has been anywhere between like $10 and $20. And at like
Exactly.
the bougiest urgent care facility, no wait, no nothing. Doctor speaks to you in English, comes to you immediately. How can we help you, ma'am? Kind of situation. I've
Yeah.
paid with the visit and the prescription. $70 is the most I've ever paid out of pocket for any one health care thing.
Wow.
What's your current financial situation compared to what it was when you left?
I would say it's roughly about the same.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's roughly about the same because I was pretty much paying a similar amount that I was paying in the US that I am in Playa. I'm just much more at a peaceful state. So it's roughly about the same, honestly.
Okay. And if you could start over, what would you do different financially?
That's a great question. I would probably have maybe given myself more of a nest egg, more savings. Um, Maybe I would have been more saved a bit more. I'm not really sure actually.
I actually love it that's your answer because you already told us you didn't need more savings than what you had, right?
Yeah,
But it's still like I think there's something like innate in a lot of us where we're like must store money away for this thing, right? And even though you had
yeah,
enough at the $4,000, it's like,
right.
what if there was more? What if there's, but it's just how we're conditioned,
It
I
wouldn't
guess,
have
to not.
mattered either way, actually,
It wouldn't
because
have mattered.
it all worked out in the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah. So you had enough. What financial advice would you give to someone who was considering this move?
I would say if you're interested in moving abroad, do it now because I will say when I applied for my residency in 2022, I think I only had to be approved for only had to show that I was making about 2,600, right? But now I recently checked, the minimum wage in Mexico has increased. So now your economic solvency has increased as well. So if I would have applied today, I would not have been approved because I don't make enough money with the current at that particular consulate. Every consulate in Mexico is different, right? But at the consulate in Atlanta, if I tried to apply right now, I would not have been approved. So if you want to do it now.
Okay. Well, that's great advice because like you said, every January that minimum wage goes up and the minimum wage is tied to how much money you need to qualify
Exactly.
for temporary permanent residency, if you do financial solvency as your reason for being
Exactly.
there. So great advice. Thank you. How does your quality of life compare to what it was before?
I would say it's significantly improved. I think I mentioned already, I'm much more in a peaceful state. I'm super carefree. I mean, I've always been pretty laid back, but now it's probably just gotten worse. And I don't know, it's just something about being able to go to the beach whenever I want that, I mean, you just can't beat that.
Tell me your name and where you're from.
My name is Sondra Jones Thickpen, and I am from Chicago.
And where do you live now?
I currently reside in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Okay. How long have you been there?
I have been in the region for about 15 months now. So, yeah, bopping around all of Southeast Asia for the last 15 months.
Okay. And explain bopping around for the people who might be new to that concept.
I am what you would call, or what I consider, a slow traveler. So I like to go to a region and explore the entire region. You know what I'm saying? If I'm going to go to South America, I want to spend some concentrated time there. And so that's what I did here in Chiang Mai. I secured a small spot, which allowed me to go from country to neighboring country. So I've been to 12 countries in the last 12 months in the region.
Okay.
So that's a bop around. It's a slow travel style of hitting more than one place in a region and really absorbing the culture and the everything about that region.
Okay.
So that's a bop around.
Thank you. Now, when you were in Chicago, what kind of work did you do?
I was a teacher for many, 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 many moons.
When you started your bop around journey, when you left the US, how much money did you have saved?
Well, thank God for Jesus. I sold my house. So I had a pension, of course. And
Uh-huh.
then I had a few things tucked away in some accounts that I had set up myself. So, and then I had the proceeds from the sale of my house and everything that was in my house. So I had a nice little send off check. It wasn't a bad deal.
Okay. All right. All
You
right.
want it was larger than six figures. It was well over $150,000 in
Okay.
cash
In
from
cash.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I know you invest a lot now. Did you also have investments back then?
Yes, I did, but not on the accelerated path that I see for myself moving forward. But yes, I always did something. I always dabbled in some kind of savings, some kind of after tax dollar investment, something. Yep.
Okay. Now, you said you sold your house,
Yep.
which I love house money. When people tell me, especially if they don't have a mortgage or if it's smaller than what the house is worth, take that house money and go do something with your life. Do something you've always wanted to do, and you did just that. So, besides the sale of your house, you talked about having some money here and there. Did you make financial sacrifices on this journey to getting to where you were prepared to move abroad?
See, I wouldn't call it a sacrifice because I had probably always lived a particular way. And I was never one to live too much above my means. And I think that's what allowed me to retire right at 55 because I had
Okay.
been kind of playing it safe all along. I had been saving, I had been putting things in investments and living wisely. I still overshopped, but I was always mindful of money. So it wasn't like I had to sacrifice to make this happen. I've been making those sacrifices over the last 20 years. Like I didn't get a new car, when all of my girls got a new car. I didn't get a new Gucci bag when everybody had a new bag. I made those sacrifices along the way so that now, you know, I could do it at 55 without thinking, without really giving it much thought. The money
Okay.
was there.
All right. That's awesome. You said you have a pension.
Yes.
I want to talk about that for a second
Ain't that the
because
best thing they ever came up with in the whole wide world? Pay you till the day you die. I was like, check, please. That's
check,
check, please.
please. Check, please. I'm gonna want details if you're willing to give us details. But does
Okay.
your pension cover your monthly budget?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Easy, easy,
Okay.
easy, easy, easy.
All right. So give us the details if you can, if you feel like it.
Listen, I am living on a fraction of the budget. So I think everybody knows I made a video about my apartment here that is $325 a month. And it's a gorgeous place, worth every penny. My cell phone bill is like $9 a month. My cable or internet bill is $9 a month. And so everything, my water bill, I want to say, this is not an exaggeration. I want to say my last water bill was like 87 cents. It was between 87 cents and $1.50. So when you think about it, I could take care of all of those necessary expenses for under $500. And then
Hmm.
the rest is spent on food, transportation, and entertainment. Are you kidding me? I'm tossing bot up in the air. I'm shaking and shimmying under the extra bot because
Okay.
that's about $1,000 a month. I could really ball out. So yeah, I'm talking about that wasn't even my mortgage back in the States.
Right.
It
Okay.
doesn't compare. It does not compare. And so with of course my pension covers all of that. And then I have a small side hustle. I wouldn't call it a side hustle. I have a business
Yes.
and that generates income. And
Okay.
so
So
yeah, it's
we're
never
gonna get
even
to.
close.
I love that. We're gonna get to your business in a minute, but first, I want to go back. For people who don't know you, they may not know, but you used to live in Mexico, also.
Yes.
Um, when you were in Mexico, did your pension cover your budget?
That was a little trickier. It still
Come on.
did. It still
Okay.
did. But if you remember, we did an interview before, and my first place was about $1,000 a month. But I got everything, and then I wanted the location wasn't ideal. So I tried to fix that problem. Paid double. I was up to $2,000 a month, which is I would not recommend that to anybody because I did the same thing. I'm going to get a place big enough for the kids to come. 3 beds, 3 bath. Kids never came. Don't do that. Trust me, everybody says it's the truth. Don't do that. So I still wasn't happy in that place. So in Mexico, it was a little harder for me to match up the value that I was looking for. You could find an inexpensive place, but it wasn't a place I wanted to stay. And so
Okay.
the more I tried to tweak what I wanted, it was costly. This is an easier puzzle, way easier. You
Okay.
just, all of them are nice.
All right.
325, you can't beat it.
Cannot beat that. All right. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to jump around a bit because I want to talk about visas right now and what
Okay.
allows you to stay in the country. So I'm going to start with Mexico, and you have a visa that allows you to live in Mexico.
Yeah, I have a 4-year temporary residency. So I took care of that first. That was a good move. When I was in Mexico, I applied for residency. So yes, I can come and go. And I've been back a couple of times. So yeah.
And what did you use to qualify for that
I
residency?
went through an alternative program, regularization. Did I say that correctly?
I think so.
Regularization. I think so. And you know what? To be honest with you, the fee was so low, and that is so relative that I don't even remember what it was. I know it wasn't like $5,000. I know when
Mhm.
the lady told me it'll cost you this much for you to secure an attorney, get the paperwork done and certified. There was a whole process I had to go through. That lasted about a month or so, maybe a month or two. And the attorney took care of everything, but it was very reasonably priced. I want to say it was under $3,000, and
Okay.
that was it.
Okay. And to get approval through that program, talk about what the requirements were.
They took my passport because you had to have two entries at that time be prior to a particular span of time. I want to say it was 2018 through 2020. At that time, that might have been the requirement. But you had to have come to the country twice. And I have fulfilled that requirement because, of course, who doesn't love Mexico? And the other thing was that you had to overstay your visa by, well, for me, it was minutes because I didn't want to be in Mexico with an expired visa whatever that stamp is at any
Mhm.
point. So I was actually at my attorney's office when my visa expired and we went to my appointment the very same day, which
Nice.
is, personal preference. But yeah,
Okay.
and so that was it. Just those two things that I recall. And
So
then
you were able to get, because you've been to Mexico in the past, and because
yeah.
in this current visit to Mexico, you overstayed your visa, you were able to get a temporary visa for how long?
4 years.
For 4 years without showing any financial information.
No, nothing at all. They did have me complete some paperwork that asked about your savings, how much you have. They did ask that question. Then I want to say if your employment status, are you retired? Are you working? Are you an entrepreneur? Some paperwork, but again, my attorney did most of the paperwork because it was in Spanish. So,
Okay.
but I do remember that. But a requirement, no, I don't
Okay.
believe there was any. I didn't have to provide any documents.
Okay, that's perfect. Now in Thailand, you are there on a visitor visa?
Yes, and when I tell you things are always in flux, because when I came, you could get a 30-day and then you could extend for an additional 30 days. Well, they just changed the rule at 4 p.m. yesterday that now everybody who comes can initially get a 60-day and then you can
Ooh,
extend that for another 30 days. So now you could get technically an automatic 90 days, which is cool. So
that's
that's how I do it. That's,
okay.
I'm here for 30 days or 60 days, whichever I have approved, and then I go to a neighboring country for a month and chill there. And then I bounce back or, come back whenever I want because my
Okay.
place is so reasonably priced. You know,
Have you
it
had any
doesn't feel
problems?
like, hmm,
Have you had any problems with that going back and forth like that?
no, nope, not at all. Mm-mm.
Okay. Um,
No. I
all
think
right.
I'm gone long enough. I'm gone for a month or two
Yeah.
that I don't think that it has set off any alarm bells.
What kind of work do you do now?
This is such a wonderful question. Now I actually run a small business from lack to legacy where we help Black women become better investors. We run a learning community. And then I have some digital products that I offer, a travel guide. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I also do a workshop for launching. It's called Launch Your Legacy, where I teach women the things I've learned, how to start an online business, how to do it with ease. Because I'm like my tech savvy is like this big. And so if your tech savvy is this big, I'm your girl.
Approximately how much money do you make each month?
I started in January. You
Mhm.
already know. This is so funny to be having this conversation with Rashida because I have to act like she doesn't know. I was just in the next Get Your Next Three Clients challenge in November. So I had a kickoff in January. So the business actually really kicked off in January. So from January to June, I'm averaging about an additional $1,000 a month to add to my little
Good.
pension check. I
Yay.
know. I could
That's
just bounce it
amazing.
from. It is from
Mhm,
somebody who started and didn't even see it a year or so
mhm.
ago. Didn't even see it. And
Yeah.
so with your help and with Stephanie's encouragement, is blossomed into, a real live business. It's a real
Oh,
live girl.
oh, oh. How has the move affected your long-term financial goals?
My goal was always to do something for my family, my grandchildren, and my kids, to make sure everybody was secure as much as I could financially. Because I've done all the things I came to do in essence. I've worked the job, I'm doing the travel. I feel very fulfilled, but I wanted to pay it forward. And so, what moving abroad has done for me is allowed me to free up way more income than I could have ever freed up if I stayed in the US with my house and car and all the things, all the trappings. And so now I can take that money, the difference, and invest that money, which is so phenomenal to see compound interest growing. You know, it is a beautiful thing to witness. Anybody who has seen, what I'm talking about. You know the feeling to know that you went to bed with a certain amount of money and you wake up and you got more and you didn't do anything except for go to sleep. So that is the having free cash to invest or to do more travel, to toss it up in the air, shake and shimmy under it if I feel like it. That is that is life changing. That was never the case when I was working that stressful 9 to 5. It was the same rat race. You get up, you do it again, again, again. You don't get to enjoy it. But
Okay.
this is full 180.
What was your biggest financial challenge in your first year?
You know, I don't think anybody talks about this. When you first retire, there's a mindset shift that has to happen because up until that time, I worked for 30 years. It was about saving money. You put away the money. You made sure that you took care of your investments first. So then to suddenly have to flip on the switch of I'm a spender and I don't have any income coming in, it felt like it felt like floating in space because that was never my mindset. My mindset was work, save money, put money away, make sure more money's coming in. And then to suddenly not be an earner and just spend the money. Oh, that took some getting used to. Watching the bottom line dwindle, watching that number get smaller and not get bigger. That was a mindset shift for me, getting comfortable with spending the money now. But
Okay.
now I'm good.
You're good? You can spend it?
Now I'm good. Now I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay. Um, do you have health insurance? And if not, how do you handle your healthcare costs?
I do. I have safety wings and they offer two programs. They offer like traditional travel insurance, but they'll do it for the length of your travel or monthly. And then they have for real, like you would purchase from Aetna or United health insurance, I don't want to call it a whole policy, but you know what I mean. It covers everything, doctor's visits. And so they've got plenty of programs to choose from. And so I found a program that works for me at Safety Wings and it covers me throughout the year. It's about $115 a month, which is a good price for me, just under $1,500 a month. And so that covers me since I don't have any pre-existing anything with my health, knock on wood, only do it. It's pretty affordable. Um, it covers hospital stays if they have to evacuate me. It covers the things I needed to cover. Since I
Mhm.
don't really need doctor's visits covered, I pay those as I go. So it's a combination of both. Things are pretty reasonably priced.
Okay. Can we talk about, so you've paid out of pocket for healthcare yourself, even though you have the insurance?
Yes.
The
Yes.
insurance is more of like if something terrible happens, right?
The deductible is 250 and the things that I have had done have not totaled 250. It's like I
Okay.
can't even get to the deductible. I can't get to
Okay.
the deductible to use the insurance.
Okay. So what are some of the things you've had done, if you don't mind sharing? And what has
Yeah.
the cost of them been?
I had glasses done in Chiang Mai and Malaysia, and just for the record, they're cheaper in Malaysia. I got contacts.
How much, remember how much the glasses were?
The glasses in Chiang Mai were expensive. Wait till I tell you the price. They were $150 with everything included. That's the exam, I know, and everything. Great care too.
Mhm.
Then when I went to Malaysia, I got them for an even better price because I got glasses, contacts for 6 months, and it was like 120 something dollars. It was
Ooh,
very
okay.
reasonably priced. So
Okay.
yes. Then of course I have had dental work and lady work. Lady, you gotta go. It's been a year. So
Okay.
I've had my yearly exam,
Uh,
everything. $35 for my yearly exam. The dental work that I
in
had done
Chiang Mai.
in Chiang Mai.
Okay. All
And
right.
the dental work that I had done, what did I have? I had a ton of work done. So much stuff that I'm telling you all, I forget, but I don't, the price was less than $3,000. I
Mhm.
got what do they call it? I had to have a lot of work done. Bone grafting,
Ooh,
an
you got
implant.
you.
Yes, 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 yes. A deep, all of the things, all of the
Mhm.
dental things. A very wonderful dentist here in Chiang Mai, and it was less than $3,000. I priced it elsewhere. I want to say in the States it would have been $8,000 to get an implant. I paid three or less, somewhere around there, but not more than four. I'd have to look
Okay.
at it, but it was very reasonably priced. Yep.
Okay. Have you ever priced out a mammogram there?
I did. Listen, I'm going to Bangkok to do the whole head to toe thing. The whole
Ooh, those look so interesting.
Yes, I know. And I want to say that that came in under $1,800. It's an entire day. It's an 8 hour ordeal, not even an ordeal. They offer you lunch. They feed you in the middle of the day. It
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it's the thing to do.
Mhm.
So for all the girlies that need to get your thing checked out from head to toe, you go to Bangkok. I want to say it's somewhere between $1,200 and $1,800, depending on the package you choose. It's
Mhm.
an all day with lunch. It's a whole event. Yep. So you
Okay.
get everything in that. That's a steal.
What's your current financial situation compared to your situation when you left?
I wouldn't even say that before I left it was financial stress. I was just stressed, period. I had been in
Mhm.
that house for 25 years. I didn't want it. The kids were gone. It was like I can say it now, but it felt like an albatross around my neck.
Mhm.
But being a first generation homeowner, you don't want to be ungrateful. I went down that whole rabbit hole of I'm grateful for having the home, for raising my kids, and it was a great investment, in terms of appreciating capital. That it was great. But I didn't want to do it anymore, Rashida. I was ready to let it all go. And it was counter to what everybody around me was saying was wise to do. Everybody's saying shelter in place, shelter in place. It's the pandemonium. Shelter in
Mhm.
place. You don't want to be. I was like, nah, I am out. Are you kidding me? This is my signal to leave. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, that was, that was a part of the journey too.
I actually do want to touch a little bit on selling your house because for so often we're told, particularly Black people within our own community, we're told that like you don't sell that house because that's the path to generational wealth for your family. And so I kind of want to talk about, if you don't mind, selling the house and how your kids felt about it. Because I feel like the way kids actually feel is not how we're told they're going to feel. But you tell me.
You are absolutely right. I have adult children, and they were very clear. They didn't want that property. My
Yeah.
daughter is like, that, thank you, mom. And it was more like, we appreciate the hard work that you've done, and we want to see you take this and
Hmm.
enjoy the benefit of your work and your labor. I got the best kids in the whole wide world. Now, at first, my daughter was a little shaken because she thought I was going to be the granny that stayed home, with the
Hmm.
babies and did the field trips. And I was like, no, excuse me. I'm gonna be the granny that's at the airport who doesn't miss flights. And
Okay.
so, yeah, they not too much fuss and a lot of support in terms of me taking those proceeds from the house and enjoying it, while I can enjoy
Yeah.
it.
It's good
Yeah.
because we're always told that like, oh no, you can't sell the house. Them kids don't want that house.
They did
They
not want it.
want
They did not view it the same way I viewed it. My
right.
daughter was like, "Paul is too small. My money bigger than this house." I was like, okay, way to hurt my feelings. And my son was in another state. He was like, it's not really worth it for me to leave my setup to
Uh-huh.
come over here. And so they didn't want it.
Yeah.
And we were able to talk it through. I respected their position. They hurt my feelings just a teeny bit. But honey, when they cut that check, I was okay. I was like, this works.
This works. And
This,
and I think the sad part of that for me is that I see so many people who feel like they have to keep the house it's the legacy, it's this, it's that. But your kids gonna sell the house. Your kids like they are, even if they want it, what they really want is the money from the house.
Rashida, take
Nine
the
times out of
money
ten.
and
Nine times out of
invest the
10.
money for the children. This is
They
all I
want
did.
the money.
Take the money from the proceeds of the
Mhm.
house. You don't have to go take, you don't have to spend it all running around the world, but you can open up investment accounts for your children and your grandchildren. And that was my plan. That's the ultimate plan, was not
Mhm.
just to take that money, because I appreciated them letting me, like giving me the freedom to be like, mommy, go. But the truth is, there's no mother in the world who isn't always forward thinking. And
Mhm.
so I always knew a part of that money was earmarked for custodial accounts for my grandchildren and making, my kids, they're wonderful, but they're not perfect. And so I still had to help them and insist that you all open up these accounts and that we start funding these accounts. And so it doesn't have to be the property that propels the wealth building, the generational
Mhm.
wealth. You can take that money and invest it in the stock market.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm telling you, the investment returns, we could talk about numbers, but that's a plan. And so that was my plan too.
Good.
It's-
And it's really important to see Black women putting their oxygen mask on first, because
yeah.
what would life be like if you were still living in that house you don't want to be in and not spending $350 a month in rent in Chiang Mai, living your big girl life?
And I think next month I'm just gonna go spend a month in Vietnam. For real. That's real life. Come
That's your
on.
life.
I would
Yeah,
no thank you. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So, I can't help. If you don't believe it, all I can do is tell you here it is. This is real, really, really my life.
I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing. Okay. If you could start over, what would you do different financially?
Okay, so here's the deal. The learning community that we run is a shame-free zone. And so I have learned to be vulnerable in that space. And you know what? When I first got that money, I didn't know really what to do with it. And I didn't. And so I put the money in an account and it sat for 2 years. And I think that that is one of the things that had my financial literacy been more developed, I would have known immediately what to do with that money.
Mhm.
Instead, I'm telling you, there's such a mind shift between being an earner and when you retire and it's time to become a spender. I was paralyzed. I was like, I don't know what the hell to do with all this money. I don't even know what to do. And so I put it someplace I knew it would be safe, but I didn't maximize
Mhm.
that 2 years time. So opportunity cost loss.
Okay,
That
so
is that.
the years that you weren't investing are years you would do, or not investing that money, you would do differently.
Yes, I would absolutely know now what to do with that money. That money sat for 2 years and it didn't earn nearly what it could have earned. Ugh, the thought of it gives me.
Listen, so when you left, you did you have an idea of how much money you were going to need when you went to Playa?
Nope. And I didn't go with that mindset. And so
Okay.
another part of the work I do is this lack of scarcity mindset. And so Rashida, nope. When I tell people I did not have a budget, I knew that I had worked. I knew I had saved this money. I knew I had cash, disposable cash that I could get to. And I needed to move like that because I would have worried if I didn't have that stash of money, I probably would have worried more. But knowing that I was financially, I had this money, I had this pension, it was really nice to be able to go for the first time and just be like, well, we gonna do what this weekend and be able to do it and not worry about money. It was new. I'm telling you that it was such a shift, but I've grown into it. I like it. I'm spending money and I'm
Okay.
not worried the way I would have been in the US when I was working.
How would you compare your quality of life then to your quality of life now?
Now, which one are we talking about? We're comparing because I feel like I have
Chicago? Well,
two.
no, tell us. Give me, come on.
I have three stages
Okay.
because there was a standard of living, and then we're going to talk about the difference between standard of living and then your quality of life. Because if we talk about standard of living, the US hands down, you're going to have roads, infrastructure, things work. So I would consider that kind of infrastructure. Of course, that's quality of life. No, that's What's the other one? Not
You
quality of
just said
life.
it was standard of
That's
living.
standard of living. That's standard of living. So I think the U.S. takes that one hands down. You can drink the water out the fountain, out the all of that stuff.
In
But when
some
we talk
places, right?
about
In some
Lord,
places. Okay.
pray for Flint. But in terms of quality of life, it has never been better for me. Just going to Mexico for that first year was that first step into freedom and really feeling like what it is not to be afraid of the police or not to have a response to certain triggers that I would have automatically in the States. And then it felt like even another layer of freedom coming to Thailand. There's just another layer of almost like step down for my nervous system and just finding myself and my calm. And it's seriously a journey. And I've been lucky enough to with each move kind of improve on my quality of life or find something that suits me a little better. So yeah. I don't know. What was the doggone question, Rashida?
Compare your quality of life then to your quality of life now. I think you did it. You did
You
it.
already know. You know it was better, girl. I was at home in Chicago sleeping with a loaded 9mm. Let's not forget.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Anything
Yeah.
was better than living that, girl, that was bananas. And so no, we don't even lock, well, we lock the doors, but if you don't lock a door, nobody is, that's a whole night and day. That whole
So
night and day.
it's hilarious because people are always like, "You live in Mexico? Is it safe?" And like, I forget to lock my front door
Does that thing not that just
all
blows
the
me
time.
every time. It's
And no
like,
one has ever even turned the handle. No one has ever even put in my apartment building. No one has ever even like put their hand on it. I wake up in the morning like, "Oh, I ain't locked that overnight." Okay, everything's still here. I'm fine. No one came.
I
Never.
stopped trying to convince people. I stopped. It's just like I can't. Either you see it and believe it or you don't. And if you don't, there's nothing I can say that's going to convince you. So I stopped doing it. I'm just living it.
Tell me your name and where you're from.
So my name is Cami and I am from Canada,
What part of Canada?
Ontario.
Okay. And where do you live now?
I mainly reside in Jamaica for now until I decide somewhere else.
Okay. How long have you been in Jamaica?
Um, I've been there about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little over 6 months since the end of November.
Okay. And this is middle of July? Almost
Yeah,
the
I
end of
just
July. Okay.
yeah, I just came back after Hurricane Beryl.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah.
What work were you doing in Canada before you moved to Jamaica?
I was working from home as I want to say the head of customer success and sales at a small startup, like a small
Okay.
tech startup.
Okay. And what was your annual income for that?
I didn't reach 100,000 Canadian yet. I had almost reached it and then they laid me off.
Okay. So are we like in the 90s, the 80s?
Maybe 80s,
Okay.
70s,
So I'm going to grab
80s.
my handy calculator. And I'm going to go for it. We're going to call it 85 now, just so we have an idea. So that's about 62,000 American dollars as of today.
Okay.
Now, what were you going to tell me a minute ago before I switched it up?
Oh, okay. So I was living in Ontario, but then after watching your channel and Stephanie's channel, I'm like, hey, why don't because I'm married, so I'm like to my husband, hey, why don't we try and live life a little easier? We had saved up some money, and we're like, how about we just go buy a home and have no mortgage? And now this is not like a home that costs a lot of money, like Ontario money. This was like $50,000. So we had to move provinces, and that's why we're living in Saskatchewan, because we're like, okay, we're not ready to like move out of the country. Let's move within the country and try and have an easier life. And then,
awesome.
that didn't work out, and then we left.
What happened? All right. So I guess my next question would be like, why did you move to Jamaica?
Lots of reasons, mainly lower cost of living,
Mm-hmm.
because Canada's expensive, and Jamaica cost of living has definitely gone up, but it's not as much as here. So cost of living, and then also my husband's Jamaican, so all of his family's down there, and then my background's Jamaican, so like I'm kind of used to the culture, and then I've I've lived there before because when he and I first got married, I moved over there and I was there for 2 years. And then at the end of the 2 years, I was like, get me out of here. And then I went crawling back.
Okay. Okay.
So
How much money did you have saved when you moved?
to Jamaica,
Yes.
I want to say it was about 30,000 Canadian
Okay. Okay, for the two of you,
for the two of us.
because he moved too. So I got to
Yeah.
keep doing these currency exchanges so I know what I'm talking about. So it's about $21,000. Okay. Um, when you knew you were going to move to Jamaica, did you make any financial sacrifices to help, like, save for the move?
Not really because he and I don't really spend much. Like
Hmm.
we'll spend on like online games and food, and outside of that, we're like, oh, we're fine. So we
Okay.
didn't really spend much. But I was already starting to get burned out. So the year prior, I was starting to get burned out from my job, and so because of that, I'm like, and I'm hearing you and Stephanie talk. And I'm like, I don't feel that I want to do this. So I had started kind of saving even a little more, not, maybe not eating out so much, saving a little more, keeping that in mind that I'm like, okay, I'm burned out. And I said to myself, I wanted to take, 6 months to a year off, at
Hmm.
least do that, try and save up to do that much. And then I was getting to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't even want to work anymore. And then I got
You
laid off.
guys,
So
listen, I was like, I hate this job. And then the job went away. Like, okay. All right. It
yep.
happens. Yep. Okay. Um, what kind of visa are you on, and how long are you allowed to be there on your visa?
So because I had moved to Jamaica before, because when he and I got married, I was on a permanent residency visa. So I already had that from years prior. And then because my background's Jamaican, I could have always gotten my citizenship, which I didn't know, or else I would have got that in the first place. So now I
Mhm.
have my citizenship in Jamaica. Um,
You mentioned earlier that you are retired now.
mhm.
When you moved to Jamaica, were you working or had you stopped working at that time?
Uh, like this move,
This move,
with,
yes.
yeah, no, I wasn't working. I was retired at that point.
Okay. Does your husband work?
No, like he spearfishes in Jamaica and sells
Ooh.
his fish,
Okay.
but outside of that, no. So we're
Okay.
technically both retired.
In Jamaica, what is your monthly budget?
Um, Technically, whatever our rental income we're getting is. So that's about, well, I want to say 1,400 Canadian a month, but it's actually less than that because we got to pay property taxes and all that, house insurance. So it's less than that, but I would still say it's like, yeah, still like we could do 1,500. Sometimes we go to 2,000 a month, but like 1,500, I don't even think we reach that much.
So that's for the US watchers, that's about 1100 US dollars. Now, question for you.
Hmm.
You just said rental income. So you guys own a house in Jamaica?
No, we own a house in Saskatchewan.
Ah, you're renting. Ah, wait.
Ah, yeah.
Ah, ah.
You see, like the
Yes.
influence of you and
Yes.
Stephanie. Look at
Okay.
that.
Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, so you own a house in
Yeah.
Saskatchewan, and then the money you get from rentals you use to live off of in Jamaica, and
Yep.
you were able to both retire yourselves from that.
Yep.
That's a nice life.
Very.
It's a mortgage-free. Listen,
Hmm.
I love it. How has this move affected your long-term financial goals?
in terms of long-term financial goals, I'm like, I don't really think we have any. Like, the goal was to not work. Now we're not working.
Right, like you'd made
So,
it.
so
Period.
yeah, so outside of that, it's kind of like, okay, we'd like to, save a little more money, but like because we have more time, we can kind of do what we want. So, for example, if he wants to spend time spearfishing and make money that way, he does that. Like for me, I have now started a business doing website design and such, and I already got my first client for website design and lead generation. It just happened. I'm like, hey, all right, if someone's gonna pay me for this, that means I must be good enough at it to get paid. So might as well like try and get more clients. But yeah, because we're already retired, it's kind of like, well, we want to save more money and make sure we can stay this way. Um, and we are going to have some other money coming in because before this point, we had bought a home with my parents, and we should be getting a decent chunk of change when the home sells, which means we're looking at buying another home in Saskatchewan
Ooh,
because homes in Jamaica are too expensive. We're
okay.
not buying them there. So we'll
Okay.
buy another home in Saskatchewan and rent that out. And then that'll help. And then I guess we can slowly save from there for another like cheap home that we can rent out.
The rental empire. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, so you mentioned that homes in Jamaica are more expensive. Is the overall cost of living higher in Saskatchewan or in Montego Bay where you live?
I'd say it's still higher in Saskatchewan
Okay.
because in Saskatchewan home prices are lower, but because it's still Canada, right? Like that, the price of groceries, for
Mhm.
example, is much higher. In Jamaica, right before we came back to Canada, we just spent so our total, I want to say our total bills, I think that was it. Our total bills were about 61,000 Jamaican dollars. No, yeah, those were our total bills. So that's rent, internet, light. We are renting with someone else, with a family member, but rent, internet, light, water. And then if we add the grocery, we didn't spend more than, I want to say, 20,000 Jamaican dollars on groceries. So
So is that
that's
61 plus 20 or is that 61 total?
61 plus the 20.
Okay.
And in Saskatchewan, it would be much higher, right?
So your monthly expenses in Jamaica are about 81,000 Jamaican dollars?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we go, that's why I said like we live
Okay.
within that rental income. Sometimes we go higher than that depending on what we need.
I want
But
to show the people. That's 518 US dollars. I don't know if you saw my eyes get a little larger when you said that. I was like, wait, that's. Listen, it's hard to know with the Jamaican dollar, like what it's going to be. So I couldn't ballpark that one. But yeah, that's
yeah,
518 US dollars as of today.
yeah.
Okay, so a month.
In
And that's
Canada,
everything.
in Saskatchewan, we were spending, when we were last there, we were spending like 2,000 to 2,500 Canadian dollars. So
Okay.
we cut that significantly pretty much by going to Jamaica.
Okay. So 2,500 is about 1,828. So yeah. Okay. All right. That's impressive. That's impressive. Great planning on your part, especially when you have that rental income coming in. Okay. Um, did you have any debts when you left Canada?
No.
Okay. Did you have any financial challenges when you moved to Jamaica?
Not financial challenges per se, but we did spend a lot more money than anticipated.
Hmm.
And that's because we decided to stay somewhere. I feel like if we were house sitting, like if we were going around house sitting and kind of bopping around, we would have spent significantly less. But because we were staying there, like we had to put AC in our rental unit because the rental unit had no AC. And I'm like, I like the heat, but this is too much. The humidity and the heat is too much. So we had to spend money to install AC units, 2 of them in there. And then like we had to buy a car. So that was a big expense, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
like financial challenge in the sense where we couldn't pay for anything because I had thought that 30,000 that I was saving up, I had thought that would, in my mind, that was supposed to be enough for us for a couple years, right? But then, things changed. We ended up renting out the place and we're like, all right, so we just have this money sitting there. So it's not really a financial challenge, I don't think, because we've had money to pay for whatever it is we need. It's just maybe watching the spending, ensuring we're watching our spending, I think, because sometimes things, go a little overboard. Sometimes things are a little more expensive than you expect. It evens out, but it's still like more like buying a car is a lot more expensive. Renewing the car license, you're paying like, what is it, 17,000 Jamaican dollars every year, something like that. And in Canada, you only renew that once, like you only do it once, you pay once, and in Jamaica, you have to pay every year. So it's like
Okay.
things like that where like, it's like, oh, I didn't anticipate this, but it's not like,
Right.
oh, we can't pay for it. It's just like, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But
So unexpected expenses, but not
yeah,
challenging. Okay.
yeah.
Do you have health insurance? And if not, how do you manage healthcare costs?
So no, I don't. Um, in terms of healthcare, I haven't really thought about that. Maybe it's because I want to say maybe it's because I'm Canadian, because being Canadian, you don't really think about that. You just like go to the doctor. Or
Yeah.
like, I mean, there's some things that they're trying to strip out, and I feel like they're trying to make Canadian healthcare more like American, more like for profit. So like things are being stripped away, but you still can like go to the doctor, go to the hospital, and you don't pay anything. Um, so I haven't really thought about that. I have gotten sick, and when I got sick, I had my cold and flu pills that I brought with me from Canada. So I took those and then I drank some bush tea. And the teas in Jamaica are really good. I feel like that's my health insurance. The teas, the bush teas, and like, eating certain foods.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that it helps.
Okay. Do you have any idea, though, if you had to go to the doctor for, like, say, an annual exam of your lady bits? Any idea how much that might cost?
No idea. I haven't looked into it.
Okay.
And because I'm like, I mostly live in Jamaica, but I still come back to see
So you can
family
go to
once a
Canada
year.
and
I
get
just,
brilliant! So you are doing this. Get that free healthcare.
yeah.
I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's smart. It's very smart. Okay, thank you for sharing and being open about that. What's your current financial situation compared to what it was when you left?
Well, I will say we have less money in the account. We don't have the 30,000 in the account. So we don't have, yeah, we have about half that, I think. But again, it's not anything we're really worried over because we do have good tenants, and then, we're going to have that money coming in for when this house in Ontario sells, because that was a good investment that we didn't realize was a good investment. It turned out to be a good investment. So we are going to have some money coming in at some point this year, but the money is less, but it's not like we're worried.
What financial advice would you give to someone considering a similar move?
Okay, if someone wanted to make the move, like it's not like you have to do what I did, right? Because I talk to my family about this all the time. And I'm like, you don't necessarily have to do what I did, where like, bought a house provinces away where I knew nothing and nobody just to get a cheap house with no mortgage and then rent it out. and somehow be able to rent it out for decent enough money to live somewhere where that rental money can cover my expenses. Because $50,000, that doesn't, to me, it's not a lot, but to a lot of people, that's a lot, right?
Hmm.
You don't have to do that. In terms of if you want to move abroad, you can still you can still move abroad even as long as you have it's just as long as you have some sort of income coming in. I mean, you don't even, as long as you save enough, but even then, if you have some sort of income coming in, I'm talking like part-time US minimum wage income, you will probably be okay in quite a few of these countries. Like when I initially had moved to Jamaica and I was looking for a job, I ended up finding one online, $5 US an hour. I was making $5 US an hour, wasn't happy about it. I'm like, I really got my bachelor's and everything for $5 US an hour. Okay. Um, but at that point, that $5 US an hour was enough for me to tell my husband, hey, if your job makes you upset, you can quit. Because I got us at 5 US an hour.
Crazy.
Like it was full-time hours, but it was still 5 US an hour. But
Yeah.
then I got a next job for like 15 US, and that's part-time. At that
Mm.
point, we had moved to Canada, but if we had stayed here, if we had stayed in Jamaica, we would have been living very well.
Okay, on
So
$15 an hour.
on 15 US dollars an hour, we would have been living very, very well. So even if someone could make something like that, like 8 to 10, I'd say 15 is nice, but even like 13 US an hour, 15, the more you can make, the less you can work.
Hmm.
So if you're making 15 US an hour and you're working like 25 hours a week, living in Jamaica, you'll be fine, right? Or living, in certain
Hmm.
lower cost of living countries like that, you'll be fine. So you don't necessarily even need to have a whole bunch of money saved up in order to make the move. But I would also say to anyone thinking of making the move, do look at resources. There are resources available for thinking about how much money you'll actually need because you don't know how much you'll actually need until you look into it. And Facebook groups are a really great resource for that. Just asking people, hey, what are your expenses like? Something that really helped me was looking at when I was thinking about going back to Jamaica, when it was just a thought, looking at the rental prices. And I'm like, okay, they've raised quite a bit, but then it gave me a better idea of like, okay, this is how much, I can expect if I'm paying this much, this is how much I can probably, expect to pay for the rest of my expenses. And then anything I didn't know, I just go on Facebook groups and be like, hey, so, if you're renting let's say if you're renting like a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom apartment in this city or parish, how much are how much are your expenses? Like, and people say, oh, it varies because people have various situations, but you'll still get a better idea, and you'll be able to know if the move is actually doable for you. And then the other thing I'd say is the more you get rid of, the easier it is, and sell your stuff, because we sold all that we could, like not including our car, because our car that was about 6,000 something that we sold it for. So not including that, we still sold a lot of stuff and we got a good chunk of change, like 4,000 ish dollars. Like we sold the TV, the dining table, everything. We sold everything. And we made a lot more than we thought. Even some things were selling at like $5 when it should not be $5, but we're selling at $5, right?
But it all
Everything
added
adds
up.
up. Yeah.
Okay. How would you compare your quality of life now compared to what it was when you were in Saskatchewan?
Um, I want to. My answer sucks because I want to say like, it's good, right? I mean, in Saskatchewan, you're not gonna get like the the nice weather like you would in Jamaica, right? Like, yeah, you get summer, but it's not like Jamaica. You get negative. 40 degrees Celsius winters, not fun. And the food, right, because food in Canada is mostly imported, um, you're not getting as much nutrients out of the food. So in Jamaica, I want to say technically my quality of life is better in terms of the things that I want. Um, but like there's still some things that are inconvenient. Like I'm like, okay, I can get Amazon in Jamaica, but like it's gonna cost me quite a bit just to, release the stuff. I'm gonna have to pay extra. It's like it's annoying. It's
Right.
annoying, but like the quality of life is better. But it could also be because, I don't work.
I was gonna say, let's not forget the fact. I was just gonna say, okay, girl, let's not forget the fact that you don't work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you fill your time?
I color. I got back into coloring, so I color with my alcohol markers. I create YouTube videos, so I have a channel. So it's Cammy at Home, or if you type like Cammy at Home YouTube, you'll see it come up, and it's an icon of one of my pictures, so that's how you know it's me. So I create YouTube videos. Now, because I'm starting my business, leadlaunchsolutions.com. So now that I'm starting my business, I'm filling my time with that, with creating websites and creating lead magnets, so like guides, and ebooks and flyers, stuff like that. And then other people tend to take up my time. Other things just you'd think like, oh, you have all this time, and then like the day passes and I'm like, I'm not even working. What happened?
Yeah.
Like I was supposed to work out and I somehow didn't get to it the whole day, and I don't work. What happened?
When you can fill your life with whatever you want, your days just go. Your day is much shorter when you're not working. I'm telling you. When you're not working, I don't know where those hours go, but they just fly. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I learned a lot. I got a lot of tidbits I'm going to keep in my head. So thank you for being such a prize for us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tell me your name and where you're from.
Asia Rutledge in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Where do you live now?
Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
How long have you been there?
3 years.
Already? Wow. Okay. Who do you live with in Puerto Vallarta?
My son and my dog.
Okay. And how old is your son now?
17.
Already?
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
That is nuts. That is nuts. Okay. What kind of work did you do before you moved?
Okay. Well, before I moved, I was still working for myself. So I was doing like business management and project management work remotely for like small businesses, startups, and solopreneurs.
How much money did you have saved when you made your move?
$2,000.
Okay. Did you make any when you were in Atlanta, did you make any financial sacrifices to afford your move to Mexico?
No, it wasn't. I didn't have this like big master plan. I'm moving on this date. It was very much like, this is chaos and I literally can't keep staying here. And so I've just got to make it work. And so I didn't have a whole plan. I hadn't been, like, the only things I had been doing was like making my, aligning my bank account, because I had read like residency requirements. We had been in Mexico before for 7 months. And so I knew residency requirements needed certain, like your address to be consistent and all this kind of stuff. So that was the only stuff I had done for a just in case when we go back. But let me tell you what the savings was. It wasn't savings, Rashida. It was, I canceled my lease. So it would have been the rent and the expenses for the next month. It wasn't even me
Oh,
saving the
you didn't have
money.
savings. You just moved it from one pocket to another pocket.
Yeah, I did not have money. If you want to make something work, you can make it work. Because I didn't have it, you know. I didn't have it. I had been seeing a lot of doctors. My son, he has autism, and I've always had to pay out of pocket for his doctors. That has never been an insurance thing. Like, I have always had to pay out so much money for stuff. Just, I always felt it was unfair. So like, I never could save money, and it wasn't because I was just balling, you know. And like, so no, being able to move was just, I'm gonna take this money over here and put it over here. And that's why I say, when I got here and I really started to feel like I don't gotta think about money, like that was new to me. Because I had been trying to like moving the soccer money to the football money to the, you know, like that's how I had been doing. Now we look good. It wasn't a struggle, but it was a conscious, I had to be thinking about stuff. You know what I mean? And so to come and like literally don't be thinking about it at all, it's like, wow, this how people be living?
People live, yeah. What kind of visa are you on? And how long are you allowed to be there?
I'm on a temporary residence, and I renew it every year, and I'm up for permanent this coming spring.
Yay.
Yeah.
And your son is on the same temporary residency?
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember back then, 3 years ago, how much money you needed to have saved or be able to prove as income in order to get the temporary residency visa?
I was trying to think about that the other day. It wasn't savings because I didn't have the savings. So for me, it was definitely the income. I want to say it was like in between 1,000 and 2,000. I don't feel like it was more than 2,000. If it was just over 2,000, but definitely, I feel like it's somewhere around like 1,500. Because I remember it was a base for me, and then like per kid or per dependent, there was an additional fee.
So for the two of you, do you remember approximately how much it was?
Yeah, I think it was like, it was between 1,500 and 2,000. If something
for the two
like
of you?
Yeah, for the two of us.
Okay, that's helpful. What kind of work do you do now?
Now I am a trauma recovery coach.
Okay. And approximately how much money do you make each month?
Well, I'm in the beginning stages. So we are just getting things ramped up. I would say about 2K.
What is your monthly budget?
My monthly budget is about, I'm in a deficit right now. It's about 2,200.
Okay. How are you managing that deficit?
Different ways. Sometimes I go back to the old work I used to do and just grab a client real quick. Sometimes I have influxes of things that I'm doing, like I have the Moving Abroad ebook that I still promote, or I have other ebooks that I've written that I'll promote here and there. So it just depends on what's going on. And sometimes like money comes in different ways.
Money comes. Money comes. All right. How has this move affected your long-term financial goals?
I had quite a bit of debt. I had student loans. I had a car note. Like, I know people tell you, one thing I will say, and this is a kind of a side note, but people will say, sell all your stuff, do all that. Do what you think is best for you, because you got to live with those decisions. And for me, like I said, we had been in Mexico before, and I didn't sell my car, but something that happened where I ended up without a car. And going back to the States was like hell on earth without a car in Atlanta. And so I had this thing like, I'm not going to be in that position again. And so out of all the things I got rid of, I'm not getting rid of my car. So I still had a car note. I still had, I had credit card debt. I had debt. So I had debt, and I kept paying my debt. I don't know why people think you could leave and don't pay debt. Like, that's very perplexing to me. But yeah,
I
I
think
had that.
some people think that when you say you leave, it means you're never ever going to come back, right? And for a lot of us, that's just not
That's not
one
true.
way or another. That's just not the case, right?
No. And even if you did, like, you're gonna come back to visit, and do you want to be standing at customs like, I don't know, like who wants to do that?
Uh, also, pay your taxes, right? You don't want to, but like, you need that passport. So,
Right.
okay. Do you have less debt now?
Yeah. I paid off my student loans. I paid off my car. I paid down credit card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was a point where I had my job, and then I was gonna get another job because I didn't want to keep doing that work anymore. And then what I realized was like, oh, this other client doesn't take that much time. If I keep working this client and this other stuff, I could double up. And so, like, in 2 months, I had saved like $20,000, and so I was just
In
piling
two
up.
months?
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean, it was I used to do like HR project management, so it's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
high paying stuff. But I wasn't using that money for bills. That was just excess money, right? The plan was to trade it, not put it on top of what I was already doing. But I was like, hey, I can do this. So I did that for a few months, and that's when I started having like my savings get really big. And so yeah, at this point I've paid off, I won't say all of my debt, but a lot of my debt.
Okay.
Something I didn't realize, I heard somebody say something around this like a few months ago, and it really made me stop and think. And they were talking about trauma, and they were saying how much you don't realize financial insecurity plays into your lack of ability to feel safe, which then impacts your ability to actually heal your trauma. And because if you never feel safe, you can't actually heal. And it struck me because when I moved here, it was the first time that I stopped thinking about money. Like, to have my expenses drop the way they did, and to be able to like literally say I want a thing and literally not think about the price was a complete shift for me. And to know that, like, without a doubt, every month I could save a certain amount of money, even if like things popped up or something unexpected came up, was like so freeing and created this space of safety for me that I had never felt before that. And so I do believe that that gave me the space to be able to heal the rest of my traumas, because I wasn't focusing on my money and how am I going to make it work and how are we going to eat and how are we going to do these things, right? Like, it just wasn't even a factor anymore. And that was something that was like so necessary for me at that time, and changed my whole outlook on my financial trajectory around things. And from there, I started like actually accumulating savings. I never had savings before. I couldn't save anything in the States, right? So like, I could actually save. And like, I remember seeing like my savings get to double digits and being like, like, I had never been able to do that before, And so to just even be able to sit with that and like I remember being like, if I'm broke, I'm broke. Like, now I'm like, if I'm broke, that means I still got 20K in the bank. You know what I mean? Like, it's changed the way I view money. And so because of that, I'm sure it's changed, how I'll handle finances going forward in
That's
ways I
amazing.
don't even know.
And I'm gonna guess, you tell me if I'm wrong. It gave you the space to change what you were doing for work, right?
Yeah.
When you
Yep.
didn't need the amount of money that you needed before, you can now do something maybe you love a little
Different.
more, do something different. Yeah.
Yep. Or even just say, forget it. I don't like this. We're going to see how this other thing goes.
hmm
Right. So, yeah, definitely.
When you moved to Puerto Vallarta, did you know that you were going to keep doing the work you were doing when you were in Atlanta?
No, I didn't know what was gonna happen. When I had moved to Mexico before, it was like I had just been laid off,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, well, what can I do? And I knew I could write resumes because I had been working in HR for the long HR systems. I knew how to make the systems work to review the resumes. So I'm like, I know how to write resumes. I got on Upwork and I did that for 20 hours a week. And that's what I did. And that's how we lived for those 7 months in Mexico before. So for me, Mexico has kind of been like a freedom to kind of do, you're not tied into the constraints anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever comes up, we might get to explore it, So I didn't know one way or another. It was just, I need to get there.
What was your biggest financial challenge the first year of your move?
The residency. Because I was like, nobody told me when you get on this side, there's another fee. So I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea, right? So, that's like in your first month of moving and you trying to get all that settled and you paying all this stuff and now you got this other fee. I was like, everybody talks about the US side and nobody talks about what happens on the Mexico side. So I was like, damn. But I remember talking to my brother and being like, I'm glad I didn't know because that would have held me back from coming. Because I would have been like, I don't have the money for it. I can't get over there and I don't have the money, right? So I was like, the ignorance probably helped me because it wasn't another thing to be a block. So when I got over here, it was like, oh, I got to do that? So I was like, okay, let me, I don't remember what I did. It was 3 years ago, but I did get the money. And so that was the biggest thing because outside of that, everything else was pretty smooth sailing. I mean, I literally, before I came, because I had been in Mexico before, part of the decision was, let me sit down and do a budget on what my life would look like in Mexico versus what it looks like here.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my final decision maker. Like, why am I sitting here struggling when I'm looking at this budget for Mexico, which is just generalizations, right? This is just based off of what I've seen before when I was there. So it might not be exact, but even with that, it's like half. So what am I going to sit here and struggle for and keep pushing to be struggling? So that was what made me just say, let's go. And so, no, there wasn't really any other financial issues because it freed up so much of my income just landing here.
Okay. Do you have health insurance? And if not, how do you handle your healthcare costs?
Yeah, we do have health insurance, but I've never used it. And I've seen a lot of healthcare here because I was sick when I moved here. So I just pay out of pocket. It's so affordable. Like I don't even know if it makes sense to file a claim. So we have health insurance for like catastrophe, I guess, right? But every doctor I've ever seen, I just pay the cash and move on. And I haven't just seen doctors. I've gotten like, ultrasounds and stuff like that. It's just affordable. I just pay for it.
So for like a typical, like your annual exam of your little lady bits, do you remember approximately how much something like that might cost?
Are you saying like including with a mammogram and all of that, or just?
If you have that number, yeah.
I feel like the appointment itself was equivalent to like 40 to 50 USD.
Okay.
And then the mammogram, I feel like that wasn't more than 1,000 pesos too, which is 40 to 50 USD, probably a little less these days. But I remember they did the mammogram and they were like, oh, this and that. So we need to do an ultrasound too. And then they did the ultrasound, but they didn't add on a a cost for the ultrasound. It was just like, we need clarity, so this is what we gonna do. And that was it. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That was crazy. So yeah, the appointment was about 40 to 50, and she did, all the gynecological stuff. And then she sent me for a mammogram. And so that was about it, like right around $100 for the whole thing.
Which wouldn't, even if you had health insurance in the US, it still even wouldn't be your copay.
Exactly.
Like, that's wild.
When I tell you how much I've been to the doctor here, because like I said, I was sick. Like, I have healed here, and I have been to so many doctors here. If I had to do that in the States and pay for it, I would be beyond broke. Like, it wouldn't even make sense. Like, I probably wouldn't have gone to half the doctors, just because financially it would have been devastating. But here I was able to just pay for it and not feel like, oh my God, like, what is this going to do to me? I pay a fee and that's it. It's not going to come back to haunt me. It's not going to be a bill later. It's not going to, like, nothing. Like, that's it.
This question is for you and your son together. How is your quality of life now compared to what it was when you lived in Atlanta?
Our quality of life is good. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's such a complex question to answer for multiple reasons, right? The very first thing that came to my mind is we went back to visit Atlanta. Well, my son did. He went to stay with my brother, and my brother was like dismantling a table and had him go into the trash can to, like, get rid of the parts. And then there was like a bolo put out in his neighborhood that there was a Black man robbing people. So in my son's first week back in Atlanta, my brother had to sit down with him and be like, hey, you need to be careful. Like, maybe you shouldn't wear the hoodie, all this kind of stuff. And like, my son's like, I don't even have to deal with this at home. Like, what are you talking about? Right. You know what I mean? And so just that, for him to, this not even to be a factor for him, I can't even quantify what that does. You know what I mean? Like, he goes off by himself here. He goes to the mall. He goes to the store. I'm not with him all the time. I don't, he might not even be going where he says he's going, right? Like, but he feels safe here, and he's not concerned about these things, and he is safe here. And so that in itself is a massive quality of life change. And then for me, I'm not working like the hours that I was working before. I might work 20 to 25 hours a week. And even when I do that, I'm like, oh God, I work so much this week,
Goodness.
Well,
you could be on the beach, right? You could be on the beach.
Exactly. I mean, I am on the beach every morning until 11 o'clock. So, and work doesn't start until I do that. And so, like, that's a quality of life thing. Like, work's not starting until I go to the beach, till I eat my breakfast slowly, till you know what I mean? And so I've become a priority in my life. And I can do that because I'm here and how we've structured our lives here. And so I just think our whole peace of mind and our quality of life. And then, like I said earlier, with the safety really creates problems in the body if you don't feel safe. And so being here, I've been able to create safety within myself and feel good in the world, like feel secure in the world. And I wasn't able to get to that place in the States. Like, going back now, I can maintain it, but I wasn't able to get to there in the States. And that's changed my whole quality of life too. It's like a massive improvement in health and everything. Like I said, I moved before And I had been laid off. I had no money coming in. I was making $1,000 doing them resume jobs, $1,000 a month doing them resume jobs. And we lived in Guanajuato, so $1,000 was affordable. Our little townhouse was $200 a month. Pick you a smart place to go, because it'll work.
It'll work. It'll work. If you pay attention, you make your moves, it'll work.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Asia. I'm going to try to respect your time and get you out of here. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope you were able to take a lot from the stories the women shared with you today. Adalia, Sondra, Cami, Andrea, and Asia were really brave to come here and talk to you about money, because it's something that most people don't like to talk about online. So if you had any tidbits in that story, let me know in the comments what they were. What were the things in their story that made you feel like, oh, maybe this is possible for me? I want to hear in the comments. Now, you're not done. You've got a little bit of homework. I really want you to move abroad. And one of the ways that I am helping you do that this year is by hosting Exodus Summit 2024. Exodus Summit is an online event. This is our 5th year running it. I can't believe it. 5 years. We are 5 years into running it, and it is a summit that will help you move abroad. Now, the theme of Exodus Summit this year is to help Black women and their families move abroad quickly. Now, quickly, one of those words that means a lot and means nothing. But what we wanted to do is we want to help you accelerate whatever pace you're on. If you think it'll take you 2 years to move abroad, we're going to try to help you do it in a year. If you think it'll take you 3 months, could you do it in 2? We want to give you some tools and some talks that will teach you things that will help you move abroad quicker. So whatever's going on with your move abroad plan, even if you haven't drafted it yet, if you're like, I want this, but I don't know how to do it, this is the place for you. We're going to be talking to Black women who have moved abroad with children, Black women who've moved abroad with parents, Black women who've moved abroad with healthcare concerns. We're talking to a very wide variety of people, and you can find them all at exodussummit.com, all our speakers. And we're so excited about the women we're bringing you this year because we think that all the sessions will give you a little smidge of information that will help you make this move faster. Now, if a session is truly applicable to you, if you have kids, you're trying to figure out how to school them, those sessions will help you move a lot faster. If you don't have kids, maybe there's something you hear in that session that will spark something, trigger something in your brain that will give you something relevant to you. So excited about hosting it for our 5th year. So excited about the speakers we're bringing you this year. And I cannot wait to see you October 11th through 14th, all online. You just got to get to your computer to see us. No Facebook or anything. And it's coming up. So if you don't have your ticket, it's time to get it. We're really excited for you to join us this year because Exodus Summit has helped so many women move abroad, and we want it to help you too. All right. Hope to see you there. Bye.